Now, if there are photons, and there are, if there are electromagnetic fields, and there are, if there are invisible scientific particles by the billions, and there are, then Christianity interprets these as the existence of an unseen spiritual universe, people with invisible beings running hither and thither and doing all kinds of weird stuff. No, these are just normal activities of the cosmos. But when you have ignorant people who are superstitious and religious, they have to somehow explain to the people sitting in their audience what this stuff is, so they say it's demons.
We've always told stories about invisible enemies. Before medicine and psychology, people described invisible forces that disrupted the world around them. In Mesopotamia, figures like Lamashtu and Pazuzu were blamed for sickness, infant death, and storms. Early Jewish texts described Azazel and Lilith as figures outside the divine order, unpredictable and unsettling. Then came the idea of Satan. In the book of Job, he's not mentioned as a red monster. He's the accuser, part of God's court, testing humans with permission. That idea, though, changed. Satan gradually became the rebel, the ruler of hell. Horror films, exorcism stories, and apocalyptic preaching turned Satan into a cosmic villain. Demons became tempters, possessors, torturers, external forces bent on destruction. At least that's the version most of us inherit, a war between good and evil, God and Satan, heaven and hell. But what if demons aren't creatures lurking in the shadows, but parts of our own mind that we refuse to face, or maybe laws of nature we have yet to understand? One thinker who explores this idea from a different angle is Bill Donahue. His work focuses on decoding symbolism, especially in ancient religious texts. He suggests that the Bible and other sacred writings use metaphor to describe inner psychological and natural realities, not supernatural forces.
There is no such place as hell. There are no such things as demons. There are no such things as devil. There is no devil. There is no Satan. And all of these things are part of the ancient Eastern way of conveying to people that which is the negative aspect of life.
Instead of imagining demons as creatures, he sees them as expressions of polarity, a natural law that runs through everything. Just as electricity requires both a positive and a negative charge to function, existence depends on contrast. Day needs night, motion needs stillness, meaning needs opposition. The concept of God and the devil isn't a battle between good and evil. It's a symbolic split used to describe the same underlying principle, a system of balance, not moral warfare. But when those symbols are taken literally, the system breaks. What was meant to describe the internal becomes projected outward, and the responsibility to understand it disappears with it. Donahue ties his interpretation to early psychology, specifically the work of Freud and Jung. They introduced the idea of the shadow, a term for the unconscious parts of ourselves we tend to ignore. He believes this concept was present in ancient systems, but was later reshaped. If something wasn't in scripture and it couldn't be explained, it was marked as diabolical. Instead of exploring internal conflict, people were trained to see it as something outside them. The devil became a container for the things they didn't understand. And when you treat your own reactions as foreign enemies, you stop investigating them. Ancient Catholic leaders privately questioned the devil doctrine. They sat in rooms, looked at each other, and wondered if this whole demonic framework actually held water. But here's where it gets interesting. One church leader cut through all the theological complexity with a brutally honest question. What's the use of having a pope if there's no devil? Think about what that means for a second. Strip away all the religious language and you're left with a power calculation. If people don't need protection from an ultimate evil, do they really need an ultimate protector? If there's no cosmic threat, what exactly is the institutional response for? Remember what Donahue was actually proposing, that these forces were meant to represent internal polarities, the natural contrasts that make existence possible, the parts of yourself you understand and the parts you don't. But the church leaders weren't interested in helping people explore their internal landscape. They needed an external enemy, because when your role is to be the protector, you need something to protect people from. Therefore, what started as a tool for self-understanding became a mechanism for institutional control. The devil doctrine wasn't preserved because it was doctrinally sound. It was preserved because it was organizationally useful. And once that choice was made, the transformation was complete. Instead of teaching people to investigate their own reactions and internal conflicts, the church taught them to fear these parts of themselves as foreign invaders. In this version, the devil is a real being who once stood beside God but chose rebellion. This fallen angel now roams the world as the tempter, backed by an army of demonic followers. He's the serpent who corrupted Eden, the dragon who will wage war in the end times. Notice what happens when you frame it this way. Evil becomes something that exists completely outside of you. It's not your responsibility to understand your darker impulses or work through your internal conflicts. It's your job to resist an external enemy with divine help. But think about how this plays out in your actual life. When you're struggling with anger, jealousy, or destructive habits, which approach serves you better? Investigating where these reactions come from and what they're trying to tell you, or treating them as foreign attacks that you just need to fight off? Look at Revelation 20. An angel chains the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil, and locks him in a bottomless pit for 1,000 years. Read it literally, and you're watching a cosmic battle between supernatural forces. But read it symbolically, and something else emerges entirely. The old serpent and dragon weren't meant to represent some external being lurking in the shadows. They were symbols for the lower nature of the human mind, the part of you that lies to you, the part that convinces you that your problems are someone else's fault, that your destructive patterns are beyond your control. How often have you heard someone say, "The devil made me do it"? It sounds almost quaint now, but consider what that phrase actually accomplishes. It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for personal responsibility. Made a decision you knew would hurt someone? Invisible influence. Fell back into a habit you've been trying to break? Demonic temptation. When you frame your struggles as attacks from an outside enemy, you don't have to do the uncomfortable work of examining why you made those choices. You don't have to sit with the reality that part of you wanted to make them. But here's what's particularly telling about calling the serpent the deceiver of the whole world. If this symbol represents the part of your mind that deceives you, then making it an external enemy is itself the deception. You're literally doing what the symbol warns against, avoiding the truth about your own nature. It's like having a friend who keeps pointing out that you're lying to yourself, so instead of listening, you decide the friend is your enemy. According to this interpretation, the book of Revelation isn't foretelling a future chaining of a literal Satan at all. It's instructing us how to master our inner demons. The angel who descends from heaven to bind the devil represents the descent of divine consciousness into our minds during deep meditation. This mystical approach even raises a daring possibility that what we call the devil might actually be part of the divine plan rather than an accident or solely a corrupter. Theosophist author Helena Blavatsky suggested that Satan and God could be one and the same entity in disguise, two sides of the same coin playing different roles. In her view, the antagonism we experience between good and evil is a necessary engine for evolution. It's as if the universe casts a shadow so that we are challenged to seek the light. How does a muscle actually grow? It doesn't get stronger from comfort, it gets stronger from resistance, from being pushed against something that challenges it. Without that opposition, it stays weak. Maybe consciousness works the same way. Maybe we need an internal adversary to push against in order to fully awaken. It's like how you never really appreciate health until you've been sick, or how you don't value peace until you've experienced chaos. The devil becomes the resistance that forces you to develop spiritual muscle. But here's where it gets interesting. If God is love, then what happens when you're not operating from love? Hell isn't a place with fire and brimstone. It's the living nightmare you create when you exist in hatred, fear, and disconnection. It's the state of consciousness you're in when you're at war with yourself and everyone around you. Therefore, when you dwell in love, you're carrying a bit of heaven with you. Even in the middle of ordinary life, the torment or peace you experience isn't coming from some external realm, it's coming from within yourself. We punish or reward ourselves by the states of mind we cultivate. Before moving on, we should address a practical question. If demons are internal, how do we explain cases of possession? When someone is under extreme psychological distress, Their behavior can become unpredictable. They might speak in unfamiliar ways or show signs that unsettle those around them. Without a medical framework, these episodes are often interpreted as something evil. In this context, exorcism allows to give shape to what is happening. It provides a clear villain and a clear cure. Psychologists note that these experiences are shaped by belief. If you expect a demon, you'll find one. If you believe in a ritual, your body and mind may respond to it. The mind uses the tools it's given. When those tools are religious, the outcome takes on religious form. When a person believes they're possessed, their mind can enter a deeply suggestible state. The exorcism gives it structure. The priest names the problem, plays the role of authority, and tells it to leave. To the person going through it, that makes sense. What's actually happening is psychological. The ritual helps them externalize fear, guilt, or trauma. So, what do we do with all this? If demons are really just parts of ourselves, how do we deal with them? How do you stop reacting from fear and start responding with awareness? Matthew 6:6. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. One of the most effective things you can do is sit in silence. No music, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. You're just paying attention to what your mind does when you stop feeding it constant noise. You'll notice how often your mind pulls you around. When you feel a surge of rage, jealousy, or despair, try approaching it with curiosity instead of fear. These reactions are usually from a part of you that feels unmet, ignored, or hurt. What we call a demon might just be an emotion trying to protect you. Anger can be covering sadness. Greed might come from a fear of not being enough. Seeing these patterns clearly is the first step to understanding them. And once you understand them, you can start working with them instead of constantly fighting against yourself. Things like crosses, holy water, or verses from sacred texts can feel powerful when you're afraid, and in a way they are because you are giving them meaning. A symbol works when your mind uses it as a focal point. It helps you ground your fear and direct your will. A crucifix or a mantra has no innate power to banish evil unless your mind believes it does. This is not to say symbols are pointless, quite the opposite. Take for example the Surah Al-Qalam verses 51 and 52 is commonly recited for protection from the evil eye, or how a specific Christian prayer can get rid of evil. The key is to use them consciously for transformation, rather than clinging to them superstitiously. For example, if you are plagued by a personal demon, be it an addiction, a toxic pattern, you might light a candle as a symbol of the divine light within you.
Watch. If you do it for evil, it's called sorcery. If you do it for good, it's called prayer. But it's the same power. You get a bunch of people sitting down and meditating for good things to happen, and good things can happen. You can get a bunch of people sitting down and meditate for bad things to happen, and bad things can happen. Because there is an inherent power in the mind. Call it God if you do it for good. Call it evil if you do it for evil.
This ceremony externalizes your intent and can make your resolution feel concrete. In the Bible, when the Israelites were bitten by venomous serpents in the desert, God instructed Moses to raise a bronze serpent on a pole. Whoever gazed upon it was healed. That serpent was a sacred symbol, effectively a tool for focusing faith and consciousness. But later on, people began to worship the bronze serpent itself as an idol, and a righteous king broke it into pieces for that very reason. Do not fear or idolize the symbol itself. Instead, understand what it represents in your journey. Finally, the most practical and profound tactic of all, make a daily, conscious habit of choosing love instead of fear. This sounds simple, even cliché, but in practice, it is life-changing. Every time you choose understanding over anger, forgiveness over revenge, or compassion over judgment, you are effectively exorcising a demon of fear and inviting the divine in. You are creating a personal reality aligned with heaven rather than hell. Remember, if hell is a state of being out of love, and heaven a state of being in union with love, then each decision tilts your inner world toward one or the other. The more we feed love, the less room there is for evil to haunt us. The devil is real, but not as a red-horned monster with a pitchfork. It is real as the part of us that forgets love, the part that falls into fear or rage. The devil's greatest trick may indeed have been convincing the world he's an external enemy, for in chasing shadows outside, people forgot to conquer the shadow within. Now we see more clearly. The next time you feel that darkness, don't run and don't obsess. Face it with courage and compassion. You might even smile, recognizing the age-old drama for what it is. The frightening masks fall away, and what's left is simply a part of you that needs love or discipline. The true power is, and always has been, yours. The power to create heaven in your own mind. And when you claim that power, choosing understanding over fear, you become, in a very real sense, devil-proof.